Thank you so much for attending. We're welcoming to our first Church Windows donations or quick coffee break quick class. It's going to be covering our donations preparing for the new year. All right, so first thing I always like to recommend here is, before we dive into the topic, is everybody should see my screen at our website. I've gone to churchwindows.com, www.churchwindows.com. It's changed a little bit here in the past week or so. First of all, down here under support on the left side, under using Church Windows, down here, we've got our support section, New Year Prep and Help. Okay, so just FYI, if you click on that, it opens up the New Year preparation page here, and we see right here, well, our coffee break quick classes, of course, advertising it. But notice right here our donations New Year prep steps right here, or we've got it at the blog page, churchwindows.com/blog. Just to, if you're looking for a basically documentation that I'm going to be using today for the quick class, then this is where I've taken that, literally got a copy of those same donations New Year steps documents. We're simply a phone call away. Okay, so of course, donations, one of the things that we really talk up about it is that it doesn't have an end of year procedure. And that is really true. There is no end of year process that separates one year's donation year from the next, okay? That's true, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we still have to do and prepare for in order to get ready for our new year. We're going to try to go through some of the really big ones that we're getting through our support calls or support line right now. Depending on, again, if time allots, we may get to some, recording some prepaids. If there is time, I will definitely cover it, but I'm not sure we probably will. So the first thing that we're getting a lot of calls on, and it's probably one of the most important features or steps that needs to be taken care of in donations in preparation for the new year, is to stop giver numbers. All right, let me back up a step. If you don't have giver numbers, you don't need to do any of this. Okay, that's one of the big things that I want to reiterate is giver numbers in donations are now optional. Giving is posted to people, not a number. So if your church doesn't use giver numbers, if you're not a pledging church, really none of this is really relevant to you. Really, you're really talking about just preparing your statements for the new year, which again is a different webinar. We're talking about just getting donations ready for the new year, not preparation of statements. So again, that's really important. So if if you don't use giver numbers or have envelope numbers, if you don't have pledges, then honestly, you can just leave the webinar, because we're going to be talking about virtually all of those things here, changing and assigning numbers, and creating labels for next year's numbers, things like that. Okay, so if you're not using numbers, you don't have to stay. You can, you're basically just looking at your donation statements. Okay, so with that being said, we go up to givers, manage numbers. We need to stop ending or end numbers for people who won't be have them for next year. And it's simply, you can do that in a couple different ways. You can go up to manage numbers here under givers and manage numbers. When it opens up our current list of givers, we can simply go down the list and go, okay, Lucy Agler here, she won't have a number as of, say, 12/31/2013, and we can just continue down the list ad nauseum until we've entered or entered the end dates for those folks, essentially saying they will not have a number after the final day of the year this year. Okay. That's really the quickest and easiest way to do that. It really kind of depends on how many folks you have that you need to remove or stop the numbers for. And what this does is that it simply says, okay, in this case, envelope number 4 is available starting January 1 of 2014 to give to somebody else if we want. Okay, and the system will do that as well. Okay, so again, start by entering that, or ceasing or ending the numbers for those who will not have them for next year. The next step would be I now need to go in and assign my numbers for everybody who will have a number for next year. And let's say, we're getting this a lot, is they're all going to change. Okay. Okay, great. Then go up to, well, back up your data first under system administration. Of course, you're making a big change to the database. But we go up to auto assign numbers. It's popping up with us and saying, while we have this window open, we have exclusive access. It opens up our auto-assign number and asking us to choose the givers that we're going to be auto-assigning them for. And notice that the very first thing it pops up and says is, what date do you want these new numbers to be assigned of? And it automatically defaults to, in this case, 1/1 of 2014. Which is great. That's exactly what we want. So we simply, if that date is there, we simply click OK. The window becomes live, asking us to choose who we're wanting to be able to assign the numbers to. Notice you can do those with numbers, those without. It will check everybody by default, those within a giver number range or within a named range of numbers that we've created. So we're going to say, we're going to just do this for everybody who has numbers currently, okay? So now that we've got our list of our givers, we can do this in a couple different ways. We can go down the list and highlight, holding down our control key, random records if we wish, okay? Or we can do select all. I can even add everybody over to the list on the left and then randomly remove those that I don't want to assign for, okay? The system is literally that flexible. Once my list of givers to include on the right, and I'm not going to go past this here, is complete, I would simply click OK. Here I am at my auto assign numbers screen for next year. And one of the steps that's really important that we do here is, if you're saying wanting to assign your numbers alphabetically for next year, you might, even though it tries automatically, notice here like Ruth Asbell is before Diana Alto, so it's sorting by that, trying its best to sort by number or name there. But if we're in doubt, we've got to click on the column header labeled last name. So now notice it is sorting everybody alphabetically. Okay, so that has to be the very first step. Then we do select all. And then here in the upper left corner, it says, okay, a starting number starting with, right here, we can enter whatever number we're wanting here, and we're going to leave it as number 1. And we're going to then click Assign Selected. And now notice down the center here, new number starting on 1/1/2014 starts with 1 for Jan, 2 for the, Jane, Carolyn, Ames, etc. And one of the things that's important to know about this is, one, if we've made a backup, we can undo it if we need to by restoring if necessary. The other option is simply do undo changes for selected here in the upper right corner. Okay, but nothing is saved here until I click the Save and Close button down here at the bottom right. So, what I always say is, okay, if you've got a list, we've been dealing with a bunch of these calls this week, take a minute. If you've got a report that shows the numbers that you want to have assigned for next year, just, once you've done this, before clicking Save and Close, just go down the list, match up the numbers with the names, just for your own peace of mind. Okay, it doesn't mean it still can't be changed, but just be aware that that is, basically Save and Close sets that, and it still can be run again if necessary, but, just be aware that we're trying to avoid doing multiple work that's unnecessary if possible. So then if I'm happy with the list, I simply click Save and Close. Oh, okay, so it's telling me I got duplicate givers. Okay, all right, well, I'd have to address that then. So maybe what that's telling me is that I've got number 24 and 25 that are still assigned for 2013, that I would have to end those numbers before those can be then assigned to somebody else that wasn't included in the list. And I think that was probably the folks that I had removed from the list. So again, the assumption would be I've already done my maintenance for those for next year who should not have them. So let's see if that's indeed the case by the 2 that I removed. And we're going to sort by name, select all, assign selected, and we're going to try doing Save and Close. There it is. It did it. Okay, so it did save those, and it was those 2 folks that I had removed from the list, but I hadn't removed them. It won't allow us to assign the same number to 2 people during the same period. So that was a good example of something that we need to make sure, but nothing again was done until I choose Save and Close. Okay. So the next question that generally follows that up when the numbers are changed is, how do I produce labels for my numbers as well for next year? So we go up to Reports, Lists and Labels, Labels. Then it opens up our Labels window, and it's already looking at specific criteria that we have here, and we're going to amend this here in just a minute. But it starts by going up to our labels here. So notice I have one called Avery Standard 5160 plus envelope number. You have to add that label or create that format. Okay, so many times you might have to go to new, or you can take one of your existing ones if you wish and choose edit. And then when it opens up our label designer or report designer, up here in the upper right, we've gone ahead and created a label where we've manipulated and already shifted around the address or label information to bring in the envelope number and the giver number information. And one of the things I like to show folks here is while you're at this report designer, this is frequently unknown, is down here in the lower left corner, forgive me, down here, lower left, right down here, notice we've got the two options labeled preview and designer. And we are on the designer tab right now. All right, so if I click on preview, this is basically what my labels will look like, all in advance of me saving anything. Okay, so what I recommend is toggling back and forth between your designer and your preview tab. You know, maybe printing your preview to a plain sheet of paper. This is just information we've got in the system here, and until you get to a format that is acceptable to you. Okay, once the format is good, then we simply click, close, and it then requires that we save the actual label format. So we would probably do save as, and then it'll ask us to name it. And I would always say identify it and make sure that you're aware that the label layout you're creating is specific for giver or envelope numbers. Okay, so put that in there, giver number, envelope number, whatever you decide. Just make sure you can tell it apart from your other labels. And then click OK. Once we've created the label format, then here's our Avery Standard 5160 envelope number. A very, very important step here is, notice it says use numbers current as of. So it's by default looking at today's date. Okay, now this is, I think, new in version 16.13. Okay, so we would want to click drop down and scroll down and choose 1/1 of 2014. Notice that the screen flashed and changed. Okay, we're not quite done yet. We want to go to our People tab, and we would want to make sure that our buttons down here in the lower right labeled under Also Include, let me point that out here, under Also Include membership groups and donations groups. Also maybe ensuring, of course, that our include terminated and inactive is not checked, but then simply once you go back to your Print tab and you're choosing the proper label format, and double checking the list if you wish, and we're going to do actually one label per giving unit instead of per individual, and click on Print Labels. And here is our envelopes for 2014. Oh, hang on, wait a minute here. Oh, I'm sorry, uncheck those without numbers. Thank you, Rachel, my fault. I was missing something here. Those without numbers, that's my fault. There we go, now we should do it. Hey, there we go. All right, so there's our envelopes or giver numbers on our labels for next year. It's sorting it alphabetically, but notice Jan K. Adams there's envelope number 1. We probably would have to go to our sort tab, and instead of choosing maybe giver number, maybe choose name or giver name if we wanted to sort that. His name in the list, it should be. Let's maybe choose something else. Yeah, but you get the idea. So, in any case, you can create those, auto-assign those numbers, as well as doing your maintenance to terminate or end the numbers, and then also produce your labels for those that you have numbers for next year already assigned. So that's the work that most of us are dealing with here in terms of our support, and of course that's what we're getting a lot of questions on right now, and that's why we felt that it was important to discuss the setting up or the preparation for donations for the new year. Again, that's preparing for the new year. All right. So again, we don't have one now, but we do have a document that talks about dealing with preparing your donation statements. that's on our blog page or at the website as well. So please take a look at that. And we will, and call us if you have questions, of course. It's about 12:17, so this is really, I'm getting about ready to wrap up the topic here. Unfortunately, folks, I don't think there's time to go through the process of discussing or entering our pledges here. Again, that's a simple support call, so if you're on support with us, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call. We're happy to talk about entering your pledges, getting those in there. We also have useful information on setting up, again, that New Year's document there. Let me just kind of show it to you here. Talks about the donations and the New Year prep and help. Let's bring up our donations document just to show you what I'm looking at here. Oh, notice it takes us to our blog page, preparing for a new year. So here it talks about stopping giver numbers, using giver numbers, auto assign feature, and then goes down into creating labels. And then here's our starting a new campaign and recording of prepaid pledges. Wonderful documentation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Rachel's suggesting talking about one label per. Okay, that's fine. I can go back and do that. When we go back into it, when it goes into labels, what she's asking about here is on the right here where it says one label per, do we want to produce one per individual, per family, per giving unit? So depending on an individual would simply produce a label for everybody in the system based on the criteria that we have here. So let's say we've got 2 people that are giving to an envelope number as a family. Even if I uncheck under the people tab, select those, uncheck those without numbers, and I go back to my print tab, it's going to notice here, like for the Albrechts, Bill and Susan, because we have individual checked here at the top left under one label per, right here, it's going to produce a label for everybody who has a number that are even those that are marked as gives with family. So in a case like a good example of this is Bill and Susan Albrecht. They're both giving to giver number 64 as a group or a family, but because we're asking for it to create one label per number, basically, or per individual, it's going to could be duplicating your labels for you, as opposed to maybe just producing one label per family. Okay? Or in the case of giving unit, say we have 2 people that are giving within the same household to 2 different numbers, it'll produce a different label for each of those people. Most cases, 95% of the time, most of the time our users are going to choose giving unit. Okay? That's what I use or do most of the time, and that's what most of the users are happy or content with. Or that gets them the list of labels that they're wanting. Good question. All right, well, we hope it's been helpful, folks. Yeah, the key is, folks, you've got to do your maintenance for removing the numbers or ending numbers first. That's really such an important step to get taken care of right away, is that you have to understand, you've got to basically say, okay, as of this particular day, these people will not have a number. Just an FYI for you, for those who are sticking around, you can use, like if your church says, okay, I've actually dealt with a couple of these already this past couple of weeks, we're getting some users that are calling us and saying, hey, I don't want to assign numbers, or I want to remove all of my numbers as of January 1 of 14. You can use this auto assign numbers feature for that as well. So if I go in and choose my January of 14, uncheck those without numbers, select all, add everybody, notice everybody's got a number on the right, and I click OK, I can again go, okay, select all, and then on the far right side here, let me kind of steer some focus here, we've got this button here in the upper right that says End Numbers for Selected. Okay, so if I click End Numbers for Selected, notice how it's then subsequently clearing out the number for those folks for next year as well. So if your church wants to end numbers, you can use that auto reassign feature, auto reassign function to remove numbers as well. Any record that has a record of giving and donations, whether in membership, whether they're a duplicate or not, cannot be deleted. They can only be terminated. So even if you're dealing with duplicate situation where you've got duplicate people, where there's giving been posted, donations is smart enough to know when there is giving, and you'll have to terminate them. You cannot delete them. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up, folks. Again, this has gone longer than normal. This is a long coffee break, obviously, for everybody. Again, we hope it's been helpful. Thank you so much in advance for attending. And enjoy, the rest of your day. We'll look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows user group or coffee break webinar.